Uber and Lyft need a sharper turn. Investors should consider that Uber and Lyft's new driver incentives may be too little, too late.
Uber and Lyft need a sharper turn.
They do.
Investors should consider that Uber and Lyft's new driver incentives may be too little, too late.
Oh, yeah.
By Laura Foreman.
Hi, Laura.
April 13th, 2021, 7:03 a.m. Eastern Time.
Today.
What do you call a rideshare company that can't offer enough rides?
Uber.
Overvalued, possibly. As ride volumes plummeted last year, rideshare drivers left Uber and Lyft in favor of other gigs such as the delivery of groceries and meals. But as vaccination rates climb, rideshare platforms are now paying up in hopes of welcoming back drivers in time to service an expected uptick in demand. They'd better hurry. The most recent rideshare volumes reported from Uber Technologies Incorporated and Lyft suggest time is of the essence. The tables have turned for rideshare companies who over the past few years have been fighting tooth and nail to keep driver costs from skyrocketing as legislation threats mount. Uber said last week it would invest in a one-time $250 million stimulus to incentivize drivers, new and old, to come to the platform. Meanwhile, Lyft is reportedly paying out $800 bonuses and other incentives to lure drivers. Both companies say their drivers are making significantly more now than they were pre-pandemic due to the short supply. Investors are clearly anticipating a full rebound in rideshare demand post-pandemic. Shares of Lyft are up nearly 100% over the past year, while Uber's shares have more than doubled. Last week's news had little impact on those gains, indicating investors aren't overly concerned about what could be a potential imbalance between passengers and drivers. Perhaps they should be. Lyft said last month that the week ended February 28th was its best in terms of rideshare ride volume in nearly a year. Uber on Monday said March was the best month for its mobility business since March of last year, noting consumer demand for its mobility business is recovering faster than driver availability. Having enough drivers to meet demand was the one thing going into the second half of the year that Uber's chief executive officer, Dara Khosrowshahi, said he was worried about on his company's fourth quarter conference call. That isn't great news for a company that already appears to be paying up for drivers in the first half of the year. Uber said last week its drivers are currently making more than $31 an hour in Philadelphia and nearly $29 in Chicago, even before tips. Uber's driver pay is reportedly as much as 75% more in some areas than what it was paying before the pandemic. Uber had apparently been hoping to both incentivize drivers and save money in the process by asking consumers to pay up for rides in California. According to reports from the Rideshare Guide, drivers in places like San Diego had been asking for as much as 5 times the usual fare from riders, taking advantage of Uber's Choose Your Own Fare feature introduced for California drivers last year. That feature essentially allowed drivers the option to set their own rates for trips as a multiple of time and distance rates. But putting the onus on consumers may have been a deterrent to demand. Last week, Uber said it removed that feature, noting rider cancellations had increased 117% over the past year. It turns out riders aren't willing to pay any additional multiple for a ride right now, according to Uber. That suggests consumer demand is fragile, even as it comes back. Not a good sign, as riders have reportedly been frustrated with lengthy wait times for rides. As of March 30th, for example, the number of rideshare drivers in the state of Nevada had fallen more than 62% in just over a year, according to Casino.org, causing complaints of wait times that are way too long. As rider recovery takes hold, the question becomes how much is too much to bait back drivers. The two companies are still forecasting profits this year on the basis of adjusted earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. Lyft has said investments to boost driver supply will create a first quarter revenue headwind of $10 million to $20 million. That isn't much compared with the roughly $550 million in total revenue Lyft has guided to at the midpoint of its forecast. For Uber, a $250 million investment over the course of this year is under 2% of the total sales Wall Street is forecasting for the company in 2021. Ride-hailing companies may want to further rethink their priorities, including their cherished profitability timelines, lest they risk losing both sides of their business just as they are getting back into the driver's seat. Write to Laura Foreman at laura.foreman@wsj.com.
Write to her. Write to her as a driver. Tell her what you think, right? And in all honesty, too little, too late. Too little, too late, says the rideshare professor and his good buddy Angie. We both say too little, too late, Uber. And do me a huge favor, please. Take a quick look on the website at Display Ride. Check out the rideshare monitoring platform if you haven't checked it out yet. Safety, safety, safety. Also, if you don't want to transport people and you're sick and tired of all the stories, the assaults, etc., why don't you just start transporting items, goods, food, beer, tablets, laundry, dry cleaning, books, coffee, you name it. Curial.com. Go check them out and have a wonderful day.